Hello, Steve.
Hello.
Morning, Brad.
Morning, Will.
Hello, hello.
Hello, Ben. Nice to see you.
Yeah, how's everybody doing?
All right, in my place.
Nice, nice.
So I don't know if we should wait for more people. I know that Andrea will not join. He's on leave today. I think he's back tomorrow or maybe Wednesday.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah.
So I went on a vacation as well. I got stung by a jellyfish.
A jellyfish. Wow.
Yeah,
What happened?
Yeah, so I went, swimming
Diving.
off the coast of Hawaii, and there was a man of war like close to shore, and like my hand, luckily it was just my hand, but my hand accidentally touched it. I felt like a sharp stinging pain. I looked at it and I saw this man of war just like waddling away. I was just like, oh wow. And luckily, I just put some vinegar, like the internet, to just put vinegar on it, put some aloe on it, and then yeah, that definitely helped a lot. But it still looked pretty crazy. So yeah.
Wow. But you can work. Can you type on the keyboard?
Like in terms of like motor functions, it's not bad at all. It was just more burning when it or just it's just a burning feeling.
And just local to the hand then.
That's it. Luckily.
Yeah, fortunate. Okay, very well. Let's get to it. I prepared a short agenda for today, and then I assume that we will have maybe other things to discuss as well. I will start sharing straight away. There we go. Yes, you see my shared browser now. So we are now on June 3rd, and cannot speak and write at the same time. So that's me. And then we just keep the 0.5 roadmap for reference here. I didn't really intend to go into it in any detail explicitly. Let's see where we end up. No new attendees right now, and no immediate action items from earlier meetings. So let's take some look at the SDKs for the latest release, where we are. Now I realize that none of us in the meeting are really hands-on involved in updating the SDKs ourselves, right?
Yeah, so I did review the Java SDK
Oh,
yesterday. So I did have a few comments, but overall, there was only really like one blocking comment. Blocking comment was just typos. So I think once Jolander fixes that, it'll be good to merge. And the other comments that I had was more for like long term, like things that we need to think about.
Okay, fair enough. So about the other SDKs, I mean, I guess Andrea is the one working on the Go SDK and the Rust SDK. Now my memory fails me, whoever that was. And yeah, the Java SDK is then Jalander, I guess, mostly. So, and the Python SDK is unfortunately not maintained and updated for a long time now. We had some tickets related to SDKs that I added here to the list anyway. That was requested, I think, by, was it Jalander, both of these? About the custom schema URIs. So this is mostly a comment that we need to get this in because it hasn't been there before. It's a new thing since 040.
But have we talked about how the SDKs are going to even handle handle this to begin with?
Well, it's the very basic thing would be just to provide it as a string and then, or URI, of course, formatted string.
Oh, I meant like, yeah,
Do
I
you
meant
mean for
like,
validation as well, or what do you mean?
yeah, I meant from like a
Yeah.
usability like standpoint. Like, are
Oh,
we
yeah.
thinking about like, users being able to hook in like models, like, being able to serialize and deserialize automatically to and from the SDKs, like with these custom schemas? Or is this going to generate, like, I'm just trying to, because like, as you know, the SDK generates based off of some schema, right? And we have some custom event now that has another schema. Does it go out and fetch that and then generate like what, like, I guess, yeah, how's that going to work, I guess, is my question.
I guess my take on it would be that, well, our SDKs could be used as a library for even more detailed SDKs if anyone wants to. I mean, we ourselves subclass the Cloud Events SDKs, I guess, in many cases. So we like detail the Cloud Events SDK spec or the Cloud Events sending. And I would say if anyone wants to make even more detailed schemas on top of CDEvents, which more or less these custom schema URIs would represent, at least in my mind, then I think they would be free to create their own SDK variants or SDKs that subclass these CDEvents SDKs that we create.
Yeah,
If
I
that's one
think
way.
so. Yeah, I think so as well. But I think right now it's incredibly hard. Basically, the users, if they wanted to do that, they would need to like customize, or they would need to edit the code generation. They would need to find ways to hook into it. Like, I guess what I'm saying is that there's no easy way of doing that today, right? So I'm wondering if there's ways we can make that a little bit easier for users, being able to hook in and utilize the code that's already there for them to be able to do, to build other SDKs or build ways to handle these custom events.
So, my view is I think we should try to avoid custom events and instead roll in what those folks are trying to do into our SDK, because that's where we've gotten that's the path we've gone down with the plugins, and we've gotten into a mess where you don't have anything can talk to each other. So if there's, instead of having this subclassing process, that we make it easy for people to come to these meetings and say, I want to add this piece to it, and this is why, and then we're able to guide them down that path, because there may be a good reason why they're trying to do it, and it could be something as simple as us changing the schema slightly that is a big win for multiple people and just not one person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I totally agree. I think though that there is a need for custom data, at least in the beginning of an onboarding, what should we call it, process. When people start to get on board to CDEvents, or when we start adding support for CDEvents in a new tool that might have other details to share through events than what CDEvents currently provide. And then it would make sense, of course, to have custom data or even custom events for those things, I think. But of course, the CDEvent spec, the core of it, should for sure be complete enough to enable interoperability between the tools. So we shouldn't have just a very, very thin CDEvent spec and then have a lot of details in a lot of custom data. for
Yeah,
each implementation.
and I agree, with your sentiment, Steve. I really think ideally, we should avoid them as much as possible, but unfortunately, I don't know how feasible it is. And what I mean by that is there are particular use cases where custom events might be specific to a tool. Like we went into the detail a little bit about custom events in general, but a tool could want to use CDEvents but has really nothing to do with interoperability, or it could be scoped to a company that they just care about interoperability within their company. So custom events allows for that to be a possibility, right? And as Emil has said, there's another use case to where if someone is looking to use CDEvents, but the process of getting the event approved and being able to then usable by the SDKs takes a little bit of time. So this is also a good stopgap. And there is also, I think, a GitHub issue, or at least I've commented on it. Like, what does the transition process look like going from a custom event to being able to use a CD event, and how can we make that easier? So I think we've tried to address some of those questions. Like I said, we haven't thought too much about it, but I definitely think there is a use for custom events, but agree that people shouldn't be abusing them. That's the one thing that that we need to make sure that we put in our docs and whatnot, just to say, to be careful using this, as this might make interoperability more difficult, right? So we just need to be very clear on that people that are using this must understand that this could potentially make that much harder. So yeah, but other than that, yeah, I agree. Like in an ideal world, I definitely think we should try to avoid it as possible. But unfortunately, I think there are some use cases where we have to, that's why it exists, is kind of what I'm getting at.
Mm-hmm. Sure. No, I agree. So we should of course limit it, and we should be clear on newcomers to CDEvents and people onboarding that the intention is to make use of the core events and the core, well, maybe I shouldn't say core, but the ones provided in the spec, both events and properties as much as possible. And if there's a need for custom data or custom events, that should preferably be discussed with the group here, the work group, so we can see, well, that use case is already solved by this property or that event or whatever. Good. So, well, I think just a basic thing to at least provide support in the SDKs for providing this property at all would be, of course, to just provide a formatted URI string initially, and then we could spend any amount of time, of course, to also include validation or maybe even generation of sub objects, if so. But that's not the intention primarily with this custom schema URI, I would say. It's, from my perspective, it's mostly to limit properties or value ranges in properties for specific use cases for companies, maybe. It could be that we have a hard time aligning on a very limited range for certain fields. We have been discussing enums versus strings quite a lot, for example. But as long as, I mean, for interoperability reasons, it could be enough to say that this field, whatever, should be a string. But then within a company or organization, it might make sense to limit it to a certain group of enums or something. And there, I think it's a schema URI, custom schema would make sense at least.
Yeah, I definitely think for 4.1, just supporting this makes total sense. But I'm just thinking more of like long term, like how do we want to make this like easier, more or less. So yeah, I could also maybe have like a little chat with Andrea and Jolander to see like what the approach with the SDKs for this is long term, because I know internally at our company that you know, when we're using the SDKs, like the biggest thing that we've talked about is, you know, being able to hook into it and different ways of being able to utilize the SDK, which we found right now to be pretty non-existent. So, you know, that feature ask is going to be coming sooner rather than later, I guess is kind of what I'm getting at.
Some notes there. I think we move on then. So another big thing that has come, or maybe the biggest thing that came with 4.04 was the links, of course, as we all know. And we should start adding support for those in the schemas, sorry, in the SDKs there as well. And it was discussed briefly in this ticket, and we've discussed it in some meetings as well, that it probably is easiest to start with the embedded links because those are already part of the event schemas we have. Then, of course, that wouldn't then easily make use of an external links service, but how to integrate that with the link service, I think it's a lot more complicated thing to get into. We should, of course, start that sooner rather than later as well, but again, to not lose, well, maybe not lose traction from our potential users, and also to get the SDKs up to the 04 version. I think we should at least provide support for embedded links.
Yeah, I agree. And this is kind of why I asked about potentially having like another SIG group to talk about like SDKs and just tools in general, is because like these topics are going to get very like, you know, now that we're getting more into like the more complicated stuff, especially with links being, you know, very, very complicated. Like I was thinking like maybe having a different SIG group to talk about like how to go about implementing these things, how do we make it consistent with the SDKs, you know, and how do we make it easy, you know, where we're not reinventing the wheel every time for the SDKs as well. How do we make that easier? So yeah, I agree. I think, you know, starting with just like the embedded links and then figuring out how do we propagate that's the biggest one, is how do we propagate through the SDKs and keep the prior links also you know referenced in new links, right? So I think that's kind of like the biggest one.
Yep. Good. And then I just found two quite old issues that we wrote a long time ago. One was called conformance test, and now we actually started to rename our own examples to conformance, well, not examples, but conformance items. So the name here might not be okay, but I guess this was more to see that we are conformant with the protocol. Maybe this is actually somewhat there already with our when we in the SDKs now validate towards the schemas. But I guess it's more also about making sure that the features we require from the SDKs are actually there in all the SDKs. And that brings us to the other item I also added here for the documenting the SDK requirements, which we so far haven't written exact requirements on, and if they should be automatically conformance tested, we need to have this in some kind of machine readable form and verifiable form in some way. So it's just I wanted to highlight what SDK tasks we have in our backlog, and if anyone is eager to work on any of these, it would be great to get things done here. I think Andrea actually assigned this to himself, but that was some time ago, and I don't think too much has happened since then. So if anyone is eager to get this going, I guess there's nothing hindering from doing that as well. Are there any more comments on the SDKs group?
I think that's all I had, at least from my end. Like I said, I only reviewed the Java SDK, so if Andrea has a PR for the Go SDK, I wouldn't mind looking at that one as well.
Sure. Then we had this discussion that was quite infected, or quite intense at least, about enums or strings. And we discussed it a bit last working group, where I think you, Ben, were not there, but you made a comment after the meeting then on this. So the proposal there was that for the O4O SDKs, we should hard code the string where we today have the any off thing. And then we will change it to this example later on in 05.
Yeah, so my issue with the comment is I still don't understand what the issue was, other than it being confusing.
It had to do with the Rust SDK and how Rust handles enums versus strings. So that's why the issue was raised. Why wasn't it a true enum instead of I believe right now it's a string. And
Oh,
the
Combination of
gotcha.
string and enum, yeah.
I see. So it's based off of how the Rust tool. Okay, thank you. That's the context I was missing. Okay, that makes total sense.
and that's about as much background I know on that. But there's, and I don't know what the resolution would be, but I think Andrea was saying that the string gives us the most flexibility.
Flexible, yeah.
But at the same time, because it's not a, somebody could use the string and have a typo in it versus an enum, that type of sgoing
Right.
Is where the person with the Rust SDK was saying, which should be an enum, because then we're going to be consistent. And I'm on that side of the fence. Is the less we can take out errors, the better off we're going to be down the road. Now, I don't know across all the SDKs what that means to use an enum versus a string.
I guess one thing is that it's quite hard to get aligned on what are the right values for these things.
Yeah.
And one idea there then would be to start with having a string, free text string, and then as time goes by and we see people start using this, then we can have discussions. Okay, you're using it, and what are the exact values to then give to this property?
Right. And another thing that I want to highlight here, like stringed enums is widely used in a lot of SDKs. So it kind of confuses me that Rust doesn't have support. Like, what Rust tool are we talking about exactly? Because maybe this is an issue we could raise with them, is maybe even ask. I bet you there's a way to do it. It's just that we might have to ask them. I don't know. Do we know what tool it was?
Well, it was the Rust does support enums, and that's where the person was saying, why aren't we using enums instead of strings? Because when you do the marshalling, unmarshalling with enums, it's a lot easier than trying to marshal, unmarshal strings. Into a particular, keeping the values consistent is my understanding.
Yeah, I guess the confusion was here that we have any of, and it could either be a enum string here or just a free text string. And I guess that's where the confusion started. So this one more or less supersedes this one. This means that we can, any string is allowed, but we have something called enum here anyway, but doesn't really help in any validation. It's just that it provides some guidance to the user.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
And I guess that's why the example was used there instead. So we can still have it a free text string, but provide it as like this example tag instead, which apparently is something in the JSON schema recently added.
Yeah, and like I said, the only concern that I had there is that actually if we wanted to provide actual examples, like like not default value, or like then that might be problematic. But given that we didn't even know about the examples field, I'm okay with that, because if we only utilize it to do code generation. But like I said, we have to be very careful like in the future, because if we ever do add an example, it's going to suddenly appear in the SDKs, right? So so it's kind of like the one caveat that I wanted to say there. But I'm okay with the change.
I think from documentation perspective, and if you would have some like online help in your IDE when writing these things, if there was a well-defined examples field for your property priority in this case, then I think the IDE could quite easily show these example values. But if there is a construct like this, it would be a lot harder, I guess, for an IDE to understand, well, here we see this should be an enum, but it's actually a string, and we think these are good values. And
well, the IDE would never look at the JSON schemas, right? It'd be looking at the code.
no,
So
but I guess we generate stubs or things from the schemas as well.
right.
That can then be used for code completion or helping the developer writing things in these.
Right. And what I was getting at though is that their string enums is supported in every language. And like when I use an IDE that uses string enums, like they do pop up in my, well, I use Vim. They pop up
I don't
in
think the
Vim.
problem is the string enum itself. It's the problem is this NEO, that we have both a string enum and a free text string in the same as a value for the same field.
Right.
The other way I've seen it done for enums is you list your enums, and then you do the other, and when it's other, then it refers to another totally separate field that has the placeholder for the other value. So it's not part of the, not really part of the same part of the structure, but it is like broken out into two separate pieces. Does that make sense?
I guess you mean to say that there's a fourth value here that is not just low, medium, or high, but also other as a fourth value.
Right.
And then a separate field for that specific value.
Right.
Yeah. I think that adds some complexity to the.
It does, but it adds the complexity. It also adds the flexibility that you're looking for.
Yeah, and then if you look real quick right there, so type priority string, right? So it's not a string directly. I think that's where I think maybe that's the part that I forgot to mention, is that we're not making these actual strings in the SDKs. Like it would be a type, it would be a stringed type, if you will. So in Go, that's what this looks like. It's type priority string. All it is priority is an alias to a string. So in your SDKs, you could just type like low, or like, it would just pop up like low, medium, or a high. And then you can cast a string, any string, it could be like foo or bar, to a priority, and it would be used. So that's kind of how that's how all SDKs I've used in the past that does string enums, they do type alias strings.
Yeah, I guess that's perfectly fine, but that wouldn't then help in this case. I guess we couldn't generate such an SDK if we had
yes, we would need to make our generation more I guess more cognizant of this fact. Like it would need to look at the any of like the two types and then make the correct, I guess thing to do, right? But that doesn't necessarily, but that is a different problem, right? That's saying like, how do we go about doing that? Not exactly this, right? That's a totally separate thing. It's just like, how do we, the thing that we're trying to figure out here is like, what's the best way to solve this? And I think going with like typed enums, typed string enums is the right approach. But like I said, I could get into SDKs and designs like all day, and I'm okay with doing a string for now. And then if we could figure out a path forward about like how we can support string enums, because like I said, this is a widely used concept. We shouldn't be, any different. We should definitely, look into having the SDKs be able to support that in the future.
yeah, we'll continue looking into those options, I guess for now. But I guess for now, I think this makes sense to me at least, to have just a string and then adding this as a help in the schema. And then we'll see. There might come new constructs in the JSON schema meta model, who knows, that can handle this in a better way, which we can make use of later.
Right, and you see what Andrea has said as well. Like this new JSON is going to produce the stringed enum anyways, right? So it looks like the code generator still needs to do that for 0.5. Anywho,
could be so, yeah. Yeah, I guess we've more or less emptied that subject now, just like that. So we had that root cause. That was good to see, actually. And then the only thing I wanted to bring up was what you also referred to before, Devin, that we proposed some time ago to have another working group for splitting the schema discussions from the tools discussions on CDEvents, or the adoptions of tools, so to say. I haven't yet heard that there is any work ongoing there.
yeah, I was waiting. So Andrea said he was going to send an email with me attached to it. I've yet to see that email, so I was waiting for that. So it was going to be an email with a few folks, with DDC, with some folks from Deploy Hub, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But I did not see that yet. So I'll ping Andrea. I may have missed it, but I did take a look a few times just to make sure I didn't miss it, and see what the stance is on that. Because basically the whole working group was contingent on the discussions that were to be had in that email. So I think that's kind of like what I'm waiting for before kind of like getting that ball rolling.
Yeah, I'm a little bit confused here when it comes, if this statement here on this bullet in the previous meeting was related to the new group as well, because then he said that he intended to invite the governing board in some way. I'm not really sure why though. So maybe that's unrelated to this, but it was about promoting CDEvents. So no, that's probably quite unrelated to this, but Steve said that we should find interested parties. I don't know if that means that Steve intended to do it himself, but no, I agree. I don't exactly know who should take the ball and actually call for this, or.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, yeah, good call out then, Emil, because I was just waiting. So
Yeah.
I'll ping
Check with
Andrea.
Andrea then, since
Yeah,
I know
yeah.
that you're quite interested in this as well to get it going. So check
Yeah,
with him
yeah.
if there's any opportunity to get it started.
All right, cool. All right, well, I'll go ahead and do that then.
Perfect.
And I think we're at time, right?
It's actually half an hour left, but I don't. That's at
Oh,
least.
really?
Yeah,
Oh, I saw people dropping off. So
that's because I had another meeting, it seems. But
oh, okay, cool,
I
cool.
can. I mean, I don't have a rush in that
Oh,
regard.
no,
At
I'm
the same time,
fine.
there's nothing really left in the agenda. Do you have anything else you want to bring up?
Not really. So I started working on kind of a pre-proposal for CloudEvents for security related stuff. So that is probably going to be opened as a PR probably next week, which is kind of the pre-proposal of how to add zero trust to CloudEvents. And then once this pre-proposal is accepted, then the actual proposal is going to be written. The pre-proposal is just a deep dive, more or less into all the different protocols that CloudEvents supports, and what just what the differences are and what can be supported and so on and so forth. And then the follow-up proposal is going to be, knowing all this information, what is the best way to leverage some pre-existing security technology to support all these protocols. So it's kind of like a two-step process here.
Yeah, sounds interesting.
Yep.
I think we have some work, or is it Andrea there as well, I guess, who intended to do some work on integrating more from the OpenSSF into CDEvents spec itself. I think he has some contacts there now and then. And also Tracy has, I know she's part of the OpenSSF community.
Ah, cool.
But I haven't heard anything explicitly, any actions directly that are taken in that regard right now. But it's great that you look into this from CloudEvents perspective and then see, because if it would be on that level, it would be, I mean, we'll get it for free more or less into CDEvents as well.
Yeah. So I definitely think it needs to be there. There are two ways of like thinking about this. Like, so, you know, you have like an envelope and then you have like the contents within the envelope, right? So like the idea is the envelope is CloudEvents and we need to be able to trust that, so that, you know, we give it a stamp, we trust it. But that might not necessarily mean that the contents within the envelope can be trusted, like a dependency update, right? If there's like a really bad CVE in that, I think that's something CDEvents should be able to flag. I think I saw an artifact flagged, for example, or scanned, right? So like, I definitely think it needs to be solved. You know, a little like, you know, security needs, like, you know, both of them need to kind of like work together, like CloudEvents and CDEvents. But yeah, I think a majority of it though, in terms of the trust, like the zero trust perspective, can definitely be handled by CloudEvents. I think that's the more appropriate place to do it.
The integrity of the message.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, that would be perfect to keep on that level, I think. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so maybe that's all for today then.
All right, cool. Well, thanks again, Emil.
Again, and I guess see you next time.
Yeah, I'll see you next week.
Meet on GitHub somewhere.
Yeah, sure. For sure. All right, have a good one, Emil.
See you.
Bye.
Good time. Bye.